All right, it's all yours, Bob.
Okay, so everyone here has been here before and we all know the drill, but for the recording, we'd just like you to introduce yourselves. We'll go first. I'm Bob Gorman, Chairman of the Design Advisory Panel, and the rest of the panel is Fred,
Thanks, Bob. Fred Marino. I'm an architect.
Dan,
Dan Lovett, civil engineer.
Kelly,
Kelly Hollenbeck, architect.
and I think that's the panel tonight, right? Okay, so if the presenters will just introduce themselves for the record.
Bob, would you mind? One other thing I wanted to add, everybody. I'm attending tonight, so we have a quorum, but I'm going to refrain from making any comments on the project.
Okay.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks
Sure.
for joining.
My name is Rob Vogel. I'm the project civil engineer.
My name is Brian Reed.
Chad Atwater. Oh,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Chad. Go ahead, please.
I'm Chad Atwater with J. Davis Architects. I'm an architect for the job.
I'm Brian Reitz. I'm with Design Collective. I'm the landscape architecture on the project.
Okay, we're going to give you 15 minutes or so to present the project, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead.
Wonderful. So apologize for probably being back now the third time for this project, which we call Brompton Phase 3, which is the final section of the Blue Stream community. This is the parcel that is located adjacent to Route 1 and at the corner of Blue Stream Drive and Route 1. Next slide. So this is a overall vicinal map, kind of again highlighting where the site is located. I think everybody again has seen this so many times, but we're between Route 95 and Route 1. We're north of Route 175 or south of Route 100, and this parcel is adjacent to Route 1. This we do have a bus stop adjacent to the property on Route 1. We have a MARC train station to our north, the Dorsey station. We have another MARC train station to the south, the Savage station. So it's well positioned for public transportation, and again with bus service to the frontage on both northbound and southbound Route 1. Next slide. So this is kind of zeroing in more on the Blue Stream site itself. This is the last section outlined here in orange. The previous phases are all constructed. We're just finishing up construction right now in the back of that, what you see labeled as Delacour Towns. That is being finished up. The pond is being retrofitted back there, and actually the one of the amenities is being completed, which is a trail system that goes down below the pond, adjacent to the forest conservation area and the stream, and then pops back up into the Delacour section that is currently being completed. So that is an amenity for the residents of the various communities that make up Blue Stream. To the north is probably not exactly where you think north is, because Route 1 isn't running north and south, but you can see the north arrow. So to the what would be the west of the site and that bold line, property line, that is where the stream is located. To the west of that would be the Oaks at Water's Edge project. Also to the west of this property on the other side of the stream is the Port Capital apartment project that exists. To the north there on the north side, we're adjacent to Route 95. Again, the orange area is our site, the gray area, and we are adjacent to Route 1. To the east of the property is the retail area / flea market, which has been to you for, I believe, for their initial submission to for multifamily project at that location. And also to the east and not shown on here is existing Morris Place, which is a townhouse community that is constructed and occupied. Go ahead, next slide. So some vicinal pictures. Again, you're probably familiar already, so not to be to bore you with these, but various pictures of the site on this particular slide. Picture 1 is looking from close to the intersection of Route 1, looking up Blue Stream Drive and Route 1 and looking up in towards the subject site. Picture 2 is looking is at the corner of Coriander and Blue Stream Drive, again looking into this site, into what here is shown as a vacant site. Picture 3 is Privet Drive, looking south into the subject site. Next slide. These are picture 4 is along Route 1. We're looking down from what would be the flea market / retail site into the subject site. Those billboards are on the subject property and obviously will be removed as part of this project. Picture 5 is looking more from the kind of midpoint along the frontage into the site. You see in the background there, that would be the Morris Place project, townhouse project I had mentioned. That sign along Route 1 is a signboard that SHA recently completed, providing road information to vehicles traveling southbound on Route 1. And again, another picture number 6, looking from basically the opposite side of Route 1 and into the subject site. Next slide. So picture 7 is a good picture. There is as part of Blue Stream and the intersection improvements at Route 1, we worked with State Highway Administration and have pedestrian crossings in both directions, both across Blue Stream Drive and Route 1. And that pictures 7 and 8 basically show that. That's Lorien facility on the opposite side of the intersection from Blue Stream Drive. And picture 9 is looking from the existing retail center, which will go away one day, and where they hold the weekly flea market, and again looking kind of toward our site through the retail site. Next slide. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over at this point, at least for these next 2 slides. To Chad. Chad, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rob, for running through the sort of site parameters. Everyone here I think is familiar with the site, but so there's sort of, I guess the main thing we're sort of trying to do here, and based on the boundaries and the parameters that Rob just described, is we're obviously flanking Washington Boulevard, and then we need to transition into the existing fabric off of Blue Stream Drive. So our main sort of goals here were, number one, hold the street edge along Washington Boulevard. We want to define the community that we're proposing, and then as well as contribute to the existing site context, respect what's there, the adjacent properties, and as you see, as we'll go through this in the diagrams, we're going to do that in a couple of different ways. In terms of building scale, massing, and some stepping of the building along Washington and on Blue Stream Drive. And I'll show that on some future slides here. So the first 2 diagrams sort of arrival, if you're coming down Washington Boulevard, our goal here is to mark the site so you know when you're approaching this this development, and so you can kind of see on the arrival diagrams there's these little yellow highlighted piers or zones that where we're proposing to increase the massing. We're on Route 1. We want to have a lot of weight on that street to really hold that street edge. And we also want to have a building that sort of feels more substantial in terms of height and in width. So the way we looked at these buildings is sort of we call them a manor style. It's a little bit more unified instead of just individual towns that has more of a typical residential suburban look. You'll see in the elevations that this has more of a weight to it. And then the idea is that that process as you come down Washington Boulevard then turns and you're at the entry of the site with Blue Stream Drive. And the goal here is to kind of pick up on what we did, what was done across the street at that corner. We're going to weight the corner of Blue Stream in Washington, similar with this sort of heavier manor style building. And then really it's at that point is when you transition into the site. And that's where we really feel like, the design sort of changed in the sense that you're coming in on access with what was done across the street at the clubhouse, and you'll see that in the upcoming plan sheets. And really sort of the gem in this whole layout is this sort of community green commons area that's highlighted in yellow at the bottom of the page. And really that's, everything's just sort of radiate around that. And, your approach into the site will then terminate at another sort of banner style building that's going to really frame this, this community. And then dispersed within that, there'll be, more townhomes, more individual kind of stylistic, a little bit different look, kind of bringing that scale back down to match what Rob described in the rear of the site or the rest of the site in the back there. And so that's kind of the concept that you'll see, and then the graphics will kind of outline some of those points. Rob, I think the next two slides are probably more in your court if you want to kind of chat about the structure there.
Yeah. So the one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, and we did speak to so here we are for our third trip back, and I did want to mention that, kind of give you the background on that. The multifamily, traditional multifamily, actually the project that we last proposed for the site became basically infeasible. The cost of construction of that type of construction has gone through the roof. But when you add to that the fact that the cost of financing, the traditional financing that's used for those types of projects, has also increased dramatically. Now, when you combine those two factors, it became apparent to our client that it was no longer feasible to pursue that project for the foreseeable future. And I think rates are going up again from what we hear. So they had to drop back and figure out what they could do with this property, and hence this change. This particular slide is just really for the purpose of describing or providing some background to the constraints that we're dealing with. And really, that area outlined with the red dashes is an easement, is a stormwater management easement that was established many years ago when we originally designed the Blue Stream community. And this area provides stormwater management because this area drains to the Deep Run watershed, which requires us to provide significant quantity control. It also drains to Route 1, which requires us to manage stormwater management to the level that the Route 1 drainage system can accommodate. So this is a very functional area, and it's a very important area, and we really have to preserve that area that's outlined again in red. That area is constructed. There is a massive amount of stone with some pipe in there to move the water around in that detention facility, and then it discharges to Route 1, and then discharges ultimately flows to the deep run. So that area is kind of a hands-off area. We also had a look at the impact on as far as if that facility needed to be maintained, if it needed to be excavated, how that affects the footings for these units. And so we've looked at that three-dimensionally, and that really kind of set the corners, if you will, of what we could do here. In addition, we have to go around this facility with our utilities. So that's another set of constraints. The water lines are public. The water line carries with it a 20-foot wide public water easement. And so it very quickly gets very congested in this area. And that kind of drives a lot of this current design. And you can move to the next slide, Chad. This is a good view of a colored rendering of the site. I'll get into some just global description of what we're proposing, and I'll let Brian, our landscape architect, and Chad, the architect, go into more detail. But as Chad stated, the intent was to be radial with the entrance to the first section of Blue Stream on the left of this view, and to line that up and be kind of concentric with that. That is where we've had some of our utility connections from the very beginning of this project, and that is maintained. If you look up Blue Stream Drive, I just want to point out that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes shown there. That is a system of switchgear, transformers, and which service the nearby BGE substation. That was done in cooperation with BGE because BGE wanted to bring a main duct bank out Blue Stream Drive to Route 1 and beyond. It needed to be fairly secure. So it is a substantial concrete duct bank, which translates to some other issues that we deal with from a utility perspective, but it also required us to reserve this area for this switchgear. And Brian did a great job working around that, and you'll see that later on. But these are you see the arrangement of the townhouse buildings around the site. When we come in from our main entrance from Blue Stream Drive, to the right would be a drive that just services those buildings. But the primary drive is straight in. That would be a wide road section with then parking left and right, some community parking to the left and right, the commons, which Brian will get into more detail, down to a stop sign situation. Then the road goes parallel to Route 1. It services the back of these units, the rear loaded units that front Route 1, but load from the rear. And then that road continues back up to existing Privet Drive. Now, Privet Drive is a separate community, and it is a private road. And we did maintain an easement when Blue Stream was originally conceived. We have the ability to tie into Privet Drive at this location. We do not have the ability to tie into Coriander Drive along the townhouses and along the sides of those townhouses. So we're not permitted access there, but we did provide for a use in common access at the location that we're showing. There will be a one-way circulation for the drive that I initially spoke of that runs parallel to Blue Stream Drive and goes toward Route 1. That is a one-way circulation. You see then coming parallel to Route 1, those head-in spaces, the angled head-in spaces toward the commons, and then that ties back into our main drive, which is then all two-way circulation. The reason we have that one-way drive, we didn't think it would be a great idea to have two-way circulation back out close to the main entrance. We'd rather have that be one way and folks go out a little bit longer route, and we think that's a safer, better situation. So we'll get more into the details of the site plan, but I did want to give kind of the overall lay of the land there. With that, I'm going to turn that back over to the architects.
All right, thanks, Rob. Obviously here you can see the layout and the overall structure. The next few slides will just kind of give you some graphics of Washington Boulevard. So we're going to look at these 4 manor style buildings along here with some renderings, how we relate to the streetscape, the scale, the structure, you'll kind of see that. And then we'll come around to Blue Stream Drive and look at this corner and sort of how we respond to that versus what we did across the street. And then we'll go into Blue Stream Drive and then take a look really from this access point down into the site. And I'll show you a couple of site sections and then we'll transition. Brian can give some landscape details. All right. So at the top of the page is essentially a site elevation. This would be sort of the northern part of the site. On the high side to the right here, it, as Rob showed earlier on, it sort of dips down in the middle and then kind of comes back up. So as I mentioned earlier, our goal here is to really hold the street line. We want to project something that's, upscale, has a nice weight to it, picks up on the existing context of what's been done down the street, but, also do it in a different way. Recognizing that we have townhomes, how do we make those buildings feel more luxury, a little more weight to them, and then also, hold our boundary. And the idea that we came up with, which I mentioned earlier, with these sort of brick zones that were highlighted in yellow, so you can kind of see there's some massing at the ends to hold the corners. As you're coming down, you'll pick that up. And then we have some setbacks and steps, into the site that are also helping create some interest. We formalized a little bit by, with some dormers, which you also see on the adjacent properties. And then out front, Brian will go into some more, but we have a stone wall to pick up on the context that you kind of see up and down Washington Boulevard and Route 1 there. And really the elevations, the primary tone here is, use the brick. We can change the pattern a little bit. We have some banding to pick up. We can create this sort of interest and really feel like it kind of creates a nice facade going down the road. And so here's a quick rendering. You can kind of see of what how that's going to sort of lay out. In terms of height and scale, we have 3-story buildings and we have pitched roofs. And so, the height of it is really quite similar to the previous proposal where we had a 4-story building. And so we're really maintaining that same height. And I think in many ways it really continues is sort of appropriate height for the streetscape. And if I keep going down the street, so this next one is this next middle bay. In the center here, I think that's the one where we have this cut through that Rob was talking about for utility easements. You kind of see a little break in the wall there at the lower left. Same idea, you're right. We're going to continue this massing. We're going to play with the weight of it as it goes down Washington Boulevard. There's another image. You can kind of see the whole thing all together. The 2 darker tones here, that's in the trees, sort of mark that utility easement So the wall will gradually sort of step down there, and it'll pick back up as we get to Blue Stream Drive. And then as we come up towards Blue Stream Drive, same sort of concept. We move some of the bays around, and then here's a sort of rendering of that, what that sort of looks like. You get glimpses into the community, which is kind of nice. Sort of piques the interest. I don't think you'll probably see the community gardens, but it'll be enough to question and kind of pull you in there and see what else the development has to offer. And then we get to the corner of Blue Stream and Washington. So you can kind of see we have the manor style building here, and then we're doing the same where it turns in. Let me go to this slide. This one's probably a little better. So you kind of see, again, you get a glimpse into the community. This picture on the top left is really showing what's existing, and we're going to pick up on these sort of brick piers that run down Route 1 and repeat it in a little bit different way, but the same sort of idea and context on the corner here. So again, we want to hold the corner. We're going to weight it. It's a nice scale and entry. It has a nice view down Washington Boulevard, so you can kind of see that rhythm holding that street edge there. And as we continue in to Blue Stream Drive, you can see this arrow here, where we are. Again, we pick up on the sort of heavier building to match what's across the street with a nice site wall, walk up, front loaded apartments, and it really just starts to define and help continue that fabric that's already been created. It's really walkable, which is nice, as opposed to wandering along Route 1. This is a much nicer place where it'll get used. As you come in to the site, this is sort of looking diagonal. We have the existing clubhouse would be behind us in this image. You can see the sort of flanking manor style buildings, again, weighted on the corners with brick. And then really this is your view as you come in. So you'll see this sort of community gardens, the winding road, and then the building's interior, will have a little bit, a little more individuality to them, I guess you could say, more individualistic, more townhome, vertical up and down, segmented like you would see inside a community versus holding a street edge. And then that's just another shot of the other manor building, a little bit smaller scale as it comes around the corner. There's another image of that. And then I guess wrapping up elevations, this access that we've created as you come into the site, your view is really terminated by an interior manor building that really holds the end of that axis. So when you come in, you're aligned with this sort of brick element. It's what you just drove by on Washington Boulevard. It's what you drove by in Blue Stream. So it sort of links and pulls you into this whole community. And as you're going into the site, you're driving by the community commons and the green space. And so it's this really sort of little park inside the development, which we're really excited about. Couple last slides, just talking about scale and section. So up top, to give you some context, phase 1 of Brompton would be on the left, and the white here is if we're standing on Washington Boulevard. You can see Blue Stream Drive, and then you can see our townhouse, our drive aisle, that one-way drive aisle that Rob was talking about, the commons area, and it sort of, the section cuts through there. But just want to show that relationship to what's existing versus what we have in terms of building height and massing. And we really, it really aligns well with what's there. And we feel like it's not outdoing the other one, and it's not certainly the other building's not overshadowing us in any way. And on the right, you can kind of see the Blue Stream Drive, and then, the sidewalk and the step up, the site walls, the sort of gradual walk and connection from the first floor of the townhouses out into the community. And we also looked at the other section through Washington Boulevard. So this is really looking, if you're looking at the top here, the center here is Route 1. We have right away, warehouse, parking lot to the right, and then you can see the manor style buildings and the edge that it holds along Route 1. And then interior, we have the commons and then the other townhouses. But I want to point out what we really sort of try to focus on here is again, the height and relationship of the building to Route 1. You know, it's a busy street. We all know. We want to hold that edge and have a really nice look, but we don't want a hard edge in terms of, you know, a strict sight wall that's just, you know, not pleasant to walk by or to experience from the community side or Route 1. And so what we did is, you know, we have a 3-story building with these pitched roofs, and you know, we thought it was important to sort of drop down and gradually reach that right away. So, you know, we're no longer this hard separated wall from public spaces to private spaces. So you can see in orange, there's sort of a tiered retaining wall. We drop a portion of the townhouse, one of the rooms on the ground floor to help make that step in transition. And then Brian will talk about the sort of site retaining wall here and then the right of way and the property line relationship. And with that, Brian, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Chad. All right, I'll move through this pretty quickly, but Chad mentioned, you know, the buildings hold US Route 1 and they also hold Blue Stream Drive as you come in. So that entry experience as you come in off of Route 1 is important. You'll see a diagram in a minute about how we plan to mimic a low sight wall that we did in phase 1 quite a few years ago. And then you can see how Blue Stream 1 sort of sets up the clubhouse that will be a shared clubhouse facility for this complex. Looking at this, you can see the entrance into phase 1 to the left lines up with the entrance road that Rob has engineered over to the right. Obviously, that's important just from a safety standpoint, but ultimately that road as it comes in sets up an axis to what is the commons, if you will. So on the right-hand side of the commons, we've sort of set this up to be the more heavily programmed element. We're looking to put a shade structure there, so there'd be a small piece of architecture within the commons that helps to kind of pull you in. But ultimately, as Rob identified, there's a lot of underground constraints that are dictating this. In earlier plans, earlier versions that we showed you, there was always parking in the center over the top of this element. Now that we've gone to townhomes, we've been able to flip that because the parking requirement is much less, and be able to put this larger green space within the development. One of the things that I like about this, knowing the development and having worked on various parts of it, is that this is really the first significant green space within the development that I think is really formed well, and creates something substantial in addition to the clubhouse amenities that are there. Can you go to the next slide? So when we look at the site, Chad alluded to this a little bit, and you start to see how there are site walls along Route 1. So Route 1 dips in grade, as you saw from some of the photos. What we're looking to do is step that wall, similar to how Chad was discussing the building are sort of stepping along the grade as you move along Route 1. In order to maintain a low wall in the front, and then you could also see that there were some site walls with stairs behind. But ultimately, we have a condition similar to that to the left on phase 1, where there are retaining walls along the Route 1 frontage. When you get to the corner, we're looking to mimic the existing the phase 1 entry sign onto the right-hand side, so columns and walls and signage that would be complementary. And then as you move up Blue Stream Drive, the sort of red line that you see interrupted by the walkways will be a short 2-foot wall, really creating a little bit of separation between the more busy drive in the front. And we did that on phase 1 successfully. That sort of wraps around up and past where the transformers are located with a sort of blast wall element. And then on the north and the east sides, we have a 6-foot ornamental fence that is sort of completing the perimeter, if you will. When we get into the middle for the commons, to create some formality with that space, we're looking at some 4-foot tall columns and a 4-foot decorative fence in that area. Our client's really interested in the sort of formalized feel of this open space. You can go to the next slide. Talking about that entry drive on the way in, here you can see phase one in both of these images. It'll be similar in look and feel, mimicking the same stone material. Next slide. And I put these in here just so that you could see the detailing that was done on phase one. This is detailing that we'll pull into phase two. It's got sort of a stone base course, and then the columns in the phase one have brick. Essentially, this was a kit of parts that have been used even on other phases of the project that we haven't worked on. Next slide. You can see the application in various conditions just to give you an idea of what that would look and feel like. So as we get here, just looking at the main entrance, the idea is to add some decorative paving at the main entrance. We've done that across the street at the clubhouse. We think that that's a nice threshold into the project. We will have arms, I guess security arms. So there's a center column as well as the necessary posts in order to allow vehicles in and out of the site. That's coordinated with the center median and then the decorative paving. As you kind of move into the site, there are a couple small open spaces where we're trying to get some additional program, like the playground that you see here across from the main amenity. Can you go to the next slide, Chad? The idea is to get, a play component. We have play components spread throughout the development. It's not meant to be a significant playground, but to take advantage of some of the additional space available to us. I think the idea here is that we would go a little bit more naturalistic with boulders in and around the edge. Next slide. When we get into the main center space, ultimately we're looking to create a formal lawn with social seating areas. To the right, you can see where it says pavilion. That's meant to have an outdoor kitchen area to the side, as well as some dining tables and lounge seating. And then out from that, we've got a fire pit terrace that serves as a secondary space. Again, that's almost on axes with the entry road as you come in, trying to create some visual weight with the architecture there. And then we create some formality around that with the gardens and the ornamental plantings, fence, and a decorative fence and posts. Placing the park at the other end where we can create sort of an evergreen screen between the back of those units and the open space, and creating a small sort of library box and community entrance, if you will, to the Bark Park on the north side. You can see how the community parking is off of that, and how we've looked to create, safe pedestrian enhanced crossings where we felt like they made sense. Next slide. Just a few character precedent of what that might feel like. Looking to do something a little bit more ornamental with that fence to sort of upgrade it from the traditional, standard picket fence that you see a lot of times in these types of developments. Being a little bit more formal with the garden and the and what we're trying to do with the trees. And obviously this becomes an open, flexible space for gaming, for kicking a soccer ball, and so forth. Next slide. There is also, I think Rob alluded to this, there are some utilities or transformers located up off of Bluestream Drive. We're looking to place a screen wall off of that, and that small space in between the units there provides another opportunity for dining or outdoor grilling. We know that townhomes like this tend to not allow grills on the decks. So you either have to roll it out from your garage or provide those types of amenities within the development. So small little area, a few Tivoli lights that hang over that, something that as you drive by on Bluestream Drive will catch your eye. Next slide. This just goes back to the wall. So essentially we're looking at a 3-foot tall wall along US Route 1 that steps as grade transitions. And then we have the 6-foot tall columns. At the back end, there'll be a taller wall and then a short wall in front to mimic what's done on the opposite side of the road. The idea is to also add some flowering trees and some additional sort of screening in that corner to give a little bit of weight and balance out the Bluestream Drive entrance. Next slide. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, thanks for, oops. Am I on?
You're on.
Oh. Nick, do you have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicholas Haynes. I'm a planner too with Department of Planning and Zoning, Division of Land Development. I think the design team did a very good job, very comprehensive, presentation of what is the new layout for Brompton 3. As Mr. Reese and Mr. Vogel mentioned, this project has been seen actually twice by the panel before, but was last reviewed in 2019, where it was for a combination of apartment, commercial, and townhouse uses. So they're going to move forward with this new layout. As they mentioned, it is zone CAC. We all know that it does have direct frontage along Route 1 as well as Bluestream Drive. The Department of Planning and Zoning, we'd like the panel to make some recommendations and comments in regards to the orientation, layout, and configuration of the site plan, and how it corresponds with the existing elements. Both. I guess it'd be both to the north, northwest, south, and sort of the proposed development that we know is coming adjacent at the northern site along Route 1. Any recommendations towards the frontage design and how this interfaces with Route 1? Including, they have proposed landscaping, site walls. CZ zoning and manual, intent is really to create pedestrian interest along Route 1. Are there some recommendations maybe for the design team on how they could better interface with that Route 1 pedestrian element, or maybe some things that they haven't considered? And lastly, if the panel could evaluate and make recommendations on the conceptual architecture of the proposed townhomes, the scale, building materials, the Route 1 frontage elevations, especially for the proposed dwellings. And just sort of maybe discuss, how they could, better meet the Route 1 manual's requirements for the intent of the buildings that do we generally see along Route 1. So, any recommendations for the design, architectural design, for the team to look into would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, Brian, if you could bring up the landscape site plan, the illustrative. Okay, just a couple of questions. It looks really tight between those couple of units, that back up to each other. What's the distance between those? Where we have open space, a little narrow open spaces. There's like two sets of units that back up each other with open space in between. Yeah, like there.
Chad, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Rob, do you recall what the width was there? I think we had 25 feet maybe.
It just seems
you know,
really
with a function.
seems really tight.
Yeah,
I know
it's
in jamming this many units in here, you don't have much choice. But the other question I have is, you have this fence all along the northern perimeter there between you and the other part of this whole development. Did you ever think about like maybe having a couple of fences, you know, that opened up there so that if you had a friend on the other side of the street and have to go all the way out and around? I mean, it's all part of one development, right? It's all Blue Stream.
I mean, I can certainly take that back to the client, Bob, and discuss it. Our particular client here has a desire to create separation, but I understand what you're saying.
Are they two different clients?
So, Rob, can you sort of, I think maybe
Yes.
you're best to explain that.
Yes, yeah, I'd be happy to. So there is a little bit of difference on how the different components of the site work. So that project over there is a for sale townhouse project that has its own HOA associated with it. And this project, which is a rental, will be a rental townhouse project, is will be part of actually the project on the other side of the street, which is a mix of manor apartments and townhouses on the other side of Blue Stream Drive. So there's connectivity more between this project and the other rental project, which it is related to or associated with. And as Brian mentioned, we will certainly look to the ownership of this project to see if he can communicate with the homeowners association of the adjacent property here that you're looking at, that you're referring to see what opportunities we have to do exactly what you said and have some gates and connectivity to directly to that group. I would imagine that HOA is going to have to be on board with that.
I have no other questions. Anybody else?
While we're on the site plan, you show the one playground, the one pocket park, and you know, obviously the focus of the commons, but there was a comment that there might be other playgrounds. Where are they considered? I'm just looking at like that spot right down there at Route 1 and Blue Stream, where you have the T intersection. I know the other spot.
I was referring to with like in the phase 1 development on the left hand side of the road. I know there's there are other playgrounds within this broader development, not within this small not within the phase that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that spot down there right at that T intersection of Blue Stream and US 1 South, you know, that could be another spot you could do something with to provide that amenity. I know it's close to the commons, but you know, if you're over on that side closest to the trash, you know, going to grill at the pocket park all the way at the other end of the campus is a bit of a haul. Just something to consider, especially since you have some of these other kind of breaks between the other buildings. Trying to serve that as that kind of amenity. And then the playground area looks like it's really close to some of those townhomes. Again, it's a tight site, but really right up on those the decks of those homes. As far as the site plan.
Yeah, I got a few comments on the site as well. If you're done, Kelly.
Yeah, I'll circle back to the elevations. We can focus on the site right now.
Okay. I would recommend that you go ahead and show that existing crosswalk across Blue Stream and Route 1, that sidewalk on the left side. There's an existing crosswalk there, and the sidewalk is extended all the way around the fillet. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
there,
so
and there's an existing crosswalk there. I would recommend you showing that on there. And I'd also would recommend showing a crosswalk across the main entrance.
So Rob, that's what you were talking about in the photo, right? So there's now a painted crosswalk there. I think this is just, I don't think there's an updated aerial of it yet.
Yeah.
See it on the Google Maps that it's there.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is there and it would be shown on the site development plan moving forward.
Okay. But I would also recommend showing a crosswalk across the main entrance for safety as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then I noticed on here on the layout, so I'm looking at the sidewalk and I'm seeing some of these, is it, you said it was rentals. Is this like condos or what is it exactly? Are they townhomes?
Rental townhomes, yes, correct.
Okay. So I noticed some of them have sidewalks in front and they have access with cars in the back, but some of these do not have access to the front and only have access in the back. Am I seeing this correctly?
So the units facing, yeah, some of the internal units are, they're predominantly rear loaded. So the rear loaded, I'm sorry, they're front loaded. And so those would have sidewalk in the front along the road where they're front loaded. And then others are that are rear loaded are predominantly the units that are facing Blue Stream Drive and Route 1. So if they're front loaded units, then the sidewalk would be in the front along the road.
Okay. So if I would just make a quick recommendation, particularly like you look at US 1 and you have the front loaded with the sidewalk and you only have the one connection to the sidewalk that goes along US Route 1, I would recommend you make a connection on the ends to your left and another one to connect to that other sidewalk on the right. So it makes a tiny loop. Does that make sense?
It does. I think that's probably something we can incorporate because as you heard in the description, kind of gets low in the middle of Route 1, as it's there, and then on the Blue Stream Drive side, and then that adjacent non-residential retail site on the right there, that comes back to grade. So it should be doable, Dan, that we could make those.
Yeah, I mean it's only a few feet. It's not much, but
Yeah.
I just figured if I was in one end, I would not want to go all the way back to the middle to go all the way back. You know what I mean? So just for simplicity, and it doesn't do a whole lot to add as far as cost wise. Now, I saw a picture on the main entrance. Is there a gate? Looked like there was a gate there. Is that correct?
There's a gate on the other side of Blue Stream Drive to the associated community. It is gated for the for security purposes. Folks use it, I believe, fob in and key fob in, key fob automatically opens on the going outbound. This would be quite similar. It would be gated as well, and key fob entrance.
Rob, just to sort of challenge the term gate, it's not really a gate. It's a vehicular arm that keep, a pedestrian could walk right in it, but so it's not like it's a sliding gate or like a to that level. It's just to keep cars out of there unless you have I guess a key fob to get in.
Thank you, Brian.
So if you do if it's a manual to open, how are deliveries going to be made through here?
Yeah, I don't have I don't know exactly how that works then for deliveries. I'm guessing there would be a call box there. I'm not sure how it's done exactly in the other across the street, but they obviously are doing it.
Bob, it's Keith Gillen. Would you like me to field that question?
That would be great, Keith. Thank you.
I didn't want you to stumble through that. It's Keith Gillen with Mern Management. We're the management agent for phase 1 and phase 2 of Blue Stream, or excuse me, of Brompton House, and we'll be the management agent for phase 3. And to further clarify what Brian Reitz was indicating, these are not gates, they're essentially parking control arms, so we can monitor who is coming in and out of the community. Those arms are accessed by a fob. So credentials, a resident will present their credentials to the fob, they swipe it, the gate arm opens up. In the case of deliveries, they simply call the office. So the call box will call the office. Office provides access to the community. So delivery drivers, whether it be FedEx, UPS, Amazon, whoever it might be, can get direct access to the townhomes, as well as guests. So if a resident has a guest that arrives, guest simply pulls up to the call box, rings the resident's home or cell phone, and the resident pushes the number 9, opens the gate arm so the guest can enter the site. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, and just one more.
Sure.
Since there is access from the back, is that also going to be gated?
From Privet, Rob, sorry to kick it back to you. I'm not sure. Do we have a island there and control arms? I assume that we would, but need to clarify.
Yeah, we don't, yeah, we are not, obviously not showing it on this currently, but we certainly could do that. We'll see how, we'll have those discussions to see how secure they want to make this.
Well, I would make a recommendation on either with us again or with the planning board. You probably address that situation, how you want to do that. Okay, and then I'm going to get off on I got 2 more things. I want to make sure that I heard correctly, even though this is out of my lane. Well, wait a second. I'll say that for last. So my other one was the issue where there was an existing pond there on the site. What is that?
What is that? Is that, I'm sorry, is that what you're asking?
It looked like there was an existing pond on the site as I looked from Google Earth.
Oh, yes, there's there is, for lack of a better term, I mean, that was an old sediment trap in the site from when it was mass graded. So that,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that little basin goes away. The stormwater management, as I mentioned, is underground.
Okay, and then my final question is, I'm getting out of my my lane here. I just want to confirm, because I thought I heard you correctly say that the wall and then stone type was going to match across the street. Is that correct? Did I hear you saying? Or is it going to be slightly different but similar to the one across the street of Blue Stream?
Right. The idea is to be complementary. So that stone has been picked up in the parcels to the north. So I would like to use the same stone, assuming that it's still available. And if it's not available, we'll look to match it as closely as possible.
Okay. I roll over back to Kelly. Sorry I took so long.
You're good with me. I think it's slide 10, the first sheet that has the elevations on it. Can we go to that? Okay, yeah. So you definitely focused on the brick. What is the material proposed for the black and the gray in this image?
It'll be a vinyl siding. It can be we're showing a vertical sort of patterning to it, but in different color tones, but that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you are varying the color tones and the materials. I think with the Route 1 manual, one thing that you need to circle back on is there's definitely more of a focus in this 3-part, with the lower part being more ornamental. On what I'm seeing on these elevations, that seems to not be as prominent. There is the one set of banding, but most of the ornamental seems to be on the upper 2/3 versus the lower 1/3. So just kind of looking back at that with the Route 1 manual, I'd focus on that. And then looking at the sections that have, over the doors, say the second one in with the brick, it's actually, I think, the brick and then the middle sections, the alignment of the doors with the windows and that symmetry may want to be reevaluated. The doors kind of start to lose some prominence. Even if like an awning over that door fit the same module as the windows, that might balance that out. But the double window over the single door is a little off balance with that kind of approach. Again, focusing on that lower half, lower third.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, there's definitely things we can do there to
yeah.
Modify that. Sure.
Yeah, that'll fall better in line with the design manual. I do like the light colored ones. How you do have that 3-part is definitely delineated, but again, the bottom with the door throws it a little off balance. So I'd look at that again. So
Can we get
that would go for all of the other buildings, not just the Route 1 facade.
Sure. Yeah.
Go back to the site plan for a minute. So I see this trash point all the way at the far end of the site. Is that the only one?
Yes, that is, and being that it is a rental community, the management will be will be taking care of that for the residents.
Rob, let me jump in again. So keep going again with burn management, and as Rob indicated, yes, there's one trash pad which is located on the plan east, if you will. What we're looking at, the way that we operate phase 1 and phase 2 of this community, we do have what we refer to as valet trash. So we actually go through 5 nights a week. I think it's Tuesday through Saturday night, and we go door to door and pick up everybody's trash and recycling, and we bring that to the trash area. So residents have a convenience if they do have something that they want to take out of their home during the week on, or nights that it's not scheduled for pickup, they can certainly use the area, but we provide a service that we remove the trash from their doorstep 5 nights a week.
The other question I have is that you've got 4 dead-end streets that link into other roads which are in another development, but it's still Blue Stream. I think planning and zoning, it's ridiculous to allow these developers not to connect these streets. We're not talking about a lot of traffic here, but to have all these dead-end streets is just ridiculous. So it's a commentary. I know nothing's going to happen, but I want to go on the record as saying that. Anybody else have any comments? Fred?
Unfortunately, Bob, I have to recuse myself from making comments on this project.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
That's
Fred.
all right. Otherwise, I would have some, but as I
Okay.
said.
Any recommendations by anyone?
I'll recommend that the facades, especially along Route 1, look at the balance in implementing the 3-part goal of the Route 1 manual.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes. I'd like a recommendation, like I do in every one of these projects, that the really nice landscape illustrative translate into an actual landscape plan that is required to be put in. All in favor?
I'll second that motion.
Everybody?
Aye.
Aye.
I have nothing else. Anybody?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do we, are you gonna make a recommendation whether or not we should see this again, or is this gonna go on to planning and zoning?
I'm sorry, I missed about half of that. What was that?
I said, are we going to revisit this or is this going on to planning and
No, I
zoning?
think it can go on.
Okay.
Anyone have an objection to that?
No.
No. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. We don't have any other business, I don't think, Nick, do we?
No, just that was just the one plan for this evening. We have a couple things in the pipeline. I'll keep everybody apprised as they come in, and are officially submitted. I also do have, and I just talked to Kelly about it. I do have fair tickets for you guys, though. I sent an email out. Howard County Fair is in town. Actually next week, starting next week.
Are they for any night, Nick?
I believe it's Monday, Tuesday.
Ah.
Sorry, there's a catch, but I do have 2 tickets for everybody if you want them.
Okay.
Just let me know.
Yeah, I'm actually going on vacation, so.
You know.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.